Magic City Tech Slack channel, and with base, I was just like, let's do it. And saw with the machine learning lunches, for those of you that have come out to those, that was a really kind of effective platform for doing more kind of talk-focused events rather than trying to do it on like a Tuesday night. And it seemed to be a lot more hit or miss when you try and do those events after hours. So thank y'all all for coming out. We love to keep this momentum up and continue to do them in the future if you guys are interested in learning more. So today we're just going to kind of do an up and running with React, and we're basically going to give just kind of a high-level overview of a few of the most popular kind of starter kits that are out there. Just kind of show you what they are, how they work, the best use cases, and then open it up for you all to ask some questions at the end. And hopefully that'll lead into some deeper discussions in future meetups about particular tools and how to, optimize your builds and things like that. But without moving any further, I have to say thank you so much to Fetch. They gave up their space and they provided the food as well, so they are fantastic. And I'm going to turn it over to Mikhail, who's there. What is your title?
I'm a lead developer. So welcome to Fetch, guys. Thank you for coming. So we are a talent-driven hiring platform where you can look for a job without the companies you're interested in knowing that you're looking until you allow them to see you. So it lets you look for a job privately, or even just go about your day and be on there, and then we'll send you matches that we think that you're a candidate for, and then if you decide you're interested, you decide when to send them your information. So it's kind of like our take on recruiting where the talent is in charge. So I just have a good bunch, and that's all I have.
So quickly before we jump into it all, if you want to follow along and find that you need Wi-Fi, here are the credentials. So go ahead and write that down and make a note if you need that. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. So, well actually, before we do that, I'm David Lormor. I'm the organizer of BASE, along with Mikhail. Helps out a lot, and we have some other folks that jump in and help out. But if you guys have feedback, feel free to send that out. Our other presenters for today are Josh Flahart, who's here up front, and he's going to be talking about Next.js. And then we have John Fisher, who is going to be talking about Gatsby. So, to kick it off, I'll be talking about Create React App. And so why would you use Create React App? So how many folks in here have started a React project from scratch? How many of y'all used a starter kit for it? Whether it's Create React App. Okay, so about half. So the other half, did y'all just write your own Webpack config? Did you drop something into a single page app? How did y'all go about it? So my first React app, I wrote a Webpack config from scratch, and I had about 2 weeks of just learning Webpack and figuring out how to write the right config for what we needed. So that was 2 weeks essentially of lost productivity. And it was, I feel like I learned a lot, but it was a giant hassle. So this meme up here, you don't want to learn some Webpack. You want to go home and rethink your life. That's kind of the sentiment that I get from most people who try to do that. So, why create React app? It's probably hard to see, but single page apps are hard. Expectations from both your developers and your users are getting increasingly higher and higher. So on the development side, we kind of expect at this point that you have some sort of module bundler or build process that's going to facilitate code splitting and tree shaping so that you have these nice, efficient packages that you can deliver to your browser and facilitate speedy downloads, especially on mobile devices and whatnot. You also want transpilation of your JavaScript so that you can use the latest features and CSS prefixing so that you've got the most modern language features and graceful degradation in legacy browsers. We also expect there to be code linting and or static typing tools. So if you use TypeScript or Flow, you want to be able to incorporate that into your build and development processes. You also want your code to be testable, hopefully. And you also, as you're working in development, you probably want live reload, or if you're into all the React and Redux goodness, hot module reloading. From a user perspective, how many of y'all are familiar with the concept of progressive web apps? So that's kind of the latest kind of buzzword in terms of client-side feature sets or whatever. And that includes things like offline capability, which is facilitated by service workers, also push notifications, and other kind of app-like features that we've now come to expect from mobile apps. We want those same things out of our web apps. So, let's see. The philosophy behind Create React App is that there should be only one dependency. So I want to get up and running easily, and I don't want to manage a configuration with a whole bunch of dependencies, like Webpack and all of your different code splitting tools and whatnot. So Create React App has just one module dependency. And that module, that dependency encapsulates all of your Webpack, your Babel, your ESLint, and your other kind of go-to modules and projects, but does it in a cohesive, curated experience. So if you're familiar with Rails, it's kind of the concept of convention over configuration. Which leads into the next point, which is no configuration required. So not only do you get this great set of tools, but you don't need to configure it. Reasonably good configuration of both development and production builds is handled for you, so you can focus on writing code. So most of us want code splitting. That can get really complex if you try and optimize every different edge case. But for 90% of what you're doing out there, there's a straightforward, happy path, and Create React App provides those things for you. And finally, this is all great, but what about when you have that edge case that you do need to deal with? Create React App is not going to lock you in. So at any time, you can eject from the kind of convention-driven setup into a custom setup. With one command, all the configuration and build process is exposed to you, the developer, so that you can customize to your heart's content. So use cases for Create React App is great when you're learning React and you just want to get up and running quickly. It's also great if you want to create an example project. You just need to get a quick prototype up and running to, sell it up to management or to show a friend how something works. And it's also great if you're starting a new single-page React application. Where it's not so great is if you want to try out React without hundreds of transitive build tool dependencies. In this case, it might be easier to just have a static HTML page or to find one of the many kind of online prototyping tools. If you're not building a single page app, so you want to drop it into an existing Rails app, or you just want to build a single component, Create React App is probably not your solution. Next, if you want to do server-side rendering, it's not really set up for that, but there are fantastic tools like Next.js and Razzle that can do that for you. You'll find out a little bit more about Next.js in a bit. If your website is mostly static, so if you're doing a blog or a marketing site where you really don't need all the kind of fancy features of React on the client side, Gatsby is a great choice. Finally, if you want TypeScript, there is a separate project which is Create React App TypeScript. You should check that out. And then if you need more customization than what you get from Create React App, Neutrino has a React preset. Neutrino is kind of a generic layer on top of Webpack built by Mozilla that kind of is a starter kit for a variety of different types of projects. So what do you get with Create React app? You get React, you get JSX, you get ES6 plus. You can dive into the documentation to find exactly what language features are supported, but kind of all the major ones, things like object spread are supported. And finally, you get Flow if you want to do statically typed stuff. It's also gives you auto-prefixed CSS via auto-prefixer and post-CSS. A fast interactive unit test runner, which is Jest. Live development server that warns about common mistakes. So it does things like linting and whatnot for you. It gives you errors right there in your terminal. It also gives you a build script to bundle your JS, CSS, and your images for production, which includes hashes for cache busting and source maps. It's also provides you an offline first service worker with some kind of boilerplate code to get up and running quickly if you're thinking about building a progressive web app, and it meets all of the progressive web app criteria. And finally, it gives you hassle-free updates for the above tools with a single dependency. So when it comes time to update your Create React app, we'll get into it a little bit later, but essentially you just update one package in your package.json and install. So yeah, it's actually going to go ahead and install that. Create a new React app. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. Well, that's wrapping up. Anybody have any questions so far about?
I guess I'm curious, like with your experience using React app, is it easy? I know you mentioned that it doesn't keep you locked in, so is it easy to use as a boilerplate and then go from there?
Yeah, I think it's.
I haven't had a lot of exposure, but I would like it to be like that.
Yeah, specifically if you're building a single page app. Like I mentioned, if you're just trying to build a component that you're going to drop into a Rails app or a .NET app or whatever, it's probably not ideal. But if you just need a place to get started and you don't want to write a whole Webpack config and whatnot, you can start there and then, like I mentioned, eject when you find that you need some heavier customization with your build or development process.
So it'd be good to kind of, if you're starting a project from scratch or something,
yeah,
use it like that.
Yeah. All right, so we're loaded. So the next step was to send it to a directory, and then we can run npm start just to see where we're at. If I can find my mouse. Jump over to localhost, and we've got a very simple React app up and running. Oh, and I just loaded it up. Awesome. So once we've done that, we'll go ahead and open up our project and take a look.
You may have already answered this question before, but you find any speed gains with using yarn or NPM?
Any what?
Speed, like performance gains and using yarn over NPM?
Not with the recent versions of NPM. I haven't done Yarn too much. I tried it out when it initially came out, and it was definitely faster than NPM. But since like NPM 5.1 or so, they seem to be relatively similar. So, can everybody see this? All right. So, unfortunately. So as you can see, we've got our app directory here open. We've got our node modules as for your usual JavaScript project. We have our public directory, which essentially has what would essentially end up getting served up by our HTTP server. It's got an index HTML, a favicon, and an app manifest, which is part of the whole progressive web app system. And then we've got our source directory, which is kind of where all the magic happens. It's going to give us some CSS, an app.js, and a test file. And so you'll notice like all of your pieces of your component, all your files that pertain to a particular component, all live alongside each other. So if you're used to Rails where you've got a separate test directory and you have directories for your views and your models, React has kind of a different mindset, and you keep all that in one place. So your tests for if you had like a header component, for example, is going to live right alongside that, so you're not having to go search through your entire file tree to find related things. We also have an index CSS, and then our index.js, which is one of those files that you can change this file, don't delete this file, because that will break your build. We've got a logo, which is just part of our little boilerplate page. And then we have our service worker here, which you can see has some boilerplate that I don't have time to dive into, but know that it's going to give you enough capability to do basic offline support, and you can go and you can add more to that. And then if we jump over to our package JSON, you can see our only dependencies are React, React DOM, and React scripts. And React scripts is our magic dependency that bundles up all the Webpack and Babel and everything else that you need to get up and running. So as you go about updating your app, that's really the only thing that you'll need to update. And then you can see we've got our scripts. Out of the box, we get a start script, which is going to load up your development server and host that at localhost 3000. We've got a build script, which you'll use to build your final production build, a test script to kick off your tests and run them in interactive watch mode, and then your eject script, which is big warning there, don't do that unless you're fully confident you're ready to do that, because there's no turning back. So once you've ejected, you lose all the kind of convention over configuration magic of create React app. But sometimes you need that customization, and so it's there for your convenience.
I think they give a warning. They're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
Yeah.
It's like, yes. Well, no, are you really sure? Because there's no turning back. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, we'll run through it right at the end,
Yeah.
just so y'all can see. And so, real quick, you can see I'm going to rip off Morgan's fantastic dog API Angular CLI project that he presented a couple weeks ago. Mine's not going to be quite as cool as his was, but this is really hard coding this way. But as you can see, I've kind of removed everything from the project. I jump over to my console, and you can see now I've got an error right in my console because I broke it. So we can come over here. I'm returning nothing right now. So we can say, oops, where was that? So you can see you also get some linting as well. So this shouldn't break my app, but I've imported this logo and I'm not using it anywhere. So I'm going to have an unoptimized bundle if I'm importing all these things I never use. So I go ahead and delete that because we're not using it. And now I can go view it. I've got my little beautiful where my dog's at site. So another thing that you get out of the box with Create React app are a couple essential polyfills if you're doing kind of modern web development. One of those is the fetch polyfill. So how many of y'all have used the fetch API to make your AJAX requests? So that seems to be the way everything's moving. Not all browsers, especially legacy Internet Explorer browsers, don't support that. And so you get a polyfill for that out of the box. So I can go ahead, I want to fetch some data, so hopefully y'all are at least somewhat familiar with React. If you're not, just trust me, this is kind of how it works. But we're going to fetch, where is my, oops, dogs.
I've noticed that it's been recommended to use the did mount method for AJAX requests and service requests. I used to do it in will mount, thinking that to give it time to basically this thing to complete. But how come we're told to recommended to use did mount?
So you want to use did mount in general because there are cases where will mount fires, but then for whatever reason you end up not rendering that. Yeah, you don't actually mount that component to the DOM, and so when you really get into the nitty-gritty of React, there are use cases that make sense both ways. But
might be why I'm getting cannot set state on null.
Yeah, there are some rules around where you can and cannot modify your state. So let's see. So I'm going to do this, and then I want to get it as JSON. So I'm going to do that, and then now I'm just going to log it out, and I broke it because I can't spell. Alright, so we're good. And, oh, why is it down here? There we go. Where is my console?
Down bottom.
So breeds is going to be an array. So now I should have an array of breeds on my state. So I should be able to do breeds dot oops, no. This dot state breeds. And oops. That should all work. So now I've got a bunch of dog breeds, and just for the fun of it, we'll go ahead and, you know what, for sake of time, I'm not going to get too much into that. So that kind of gives you an overview. That's a really stupid, simple app. But you can kind of see some of the things you get out of the box, and like I didn't have to write any Webpack config. Like I mentioned, my first React project, there was 2 weeks of that before I could write this dog app. So really gives you a whole lot. And let me jump back over to slides. So once you're up and running, like if you know a little bit of React, you can really be productive quickly and get a lot done. We're going to go over the scripts. And so like I mentioned, updating is simple. You saw the React scripts in your package.json. The one recommendation I would give is to always check the changelog when you do decide you want to update. The maintainers of the repo are really good about warning you about any sort of breaking changes, but they try to minimize those in general. So you can kind of shoot first and ask questions later, or you can go ahead and prep for any changes. So that kind of only scratches the surface of what Create React App does, but I just kind of wanted to show you, if you have not started a React project, because you're like, oh my God, I don't know where to begin, hopefully this gives you a good starting point. And there is tons more to Create React App as far as customization that you can do within the constraints of their conventions. So check out the README if you want to add Sass to your project, if you want to do like image optimization and a million other things. They have support for all those things baked in, so you don't need to eject just because, for instance, you want Sass or you want style components or anything like that. So just for the fun of it, before I finish up, we'll go ahead and inject. Nothing going on.
He won't let you do
Really
it.
doesn't want you to, I don't want you to see.
npm run each. Computer, what sorcery is this? Maybe we won't eject.
Maybe that's the warning.
I don't know. I don't know what I've done.
You got some shortcuts maybe?
I shouldn't. Here, let me see if something got stuck here.
Does it have post CSS out of the box?
Yes, and it includes auto prefixture as well. If you want more than that plugin, I'm not exactly sure the install process, but I believe that's all covered in the README somewhere. That was it. Last try. Run eject. All right. So are you sure you want to eject? This action is permanent. Oh, and actually, no, I don't want to do this just yet. I wanted to do npm run build, so you guys can see this.
Does it fingerprint the assets?
Yes. So it, like I said, all the kind of normal conveniences you would expect of a modern web app should be baked in. And so let's see, we built it, and so you can see we've got a build directory now. It's got our asset manifest, our favicon, our minified index, our application manifest, our nice transpiled minified JavaScript. What is that? That's our service worker. And all of our nice minified JavaScript and our source maps. So that all works really well. And then I can npx serve as build. So now I'm serving, this is now my fully built app, and it should work. Oh, this is my other directory. Or actually, no, that's your service worker in action. It served my cached version, I think. So.
So you hit that n+1, right? It'll serve up the next one?
Do what?
Does it, if I remember correctly, if you hit it again, it'll serve up, it'll validate the cache, and serve up.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Hopefully. Keep losing my mouse. what's going on. But yeah, it should be invalidating the cache. So anyways, and then finally, npm run eject. So yes, we're going to do that. Uh-oh, this might take a while. No. All right, so we've successfully ejected, and then we can go.
Did it say please share why you chose to eject?
Yeah, so fill out that survey. Because maybe they'll make it so, or add whatever, kind of plug-in or whatever you need so that you don't have to do that. But you can see here we've got our config, and you can go see why Webpack is terrible. Because we have all of this config for just development.
Why did we do this? Why did we do that?
I don't know, what have we done to ourselves? This is horrible.
It's actually not that bad.
Yeah, this is not the worst I've seen either, but this is also just a dev config that I think might be part of a larger base config. So yeah, it gets nasty quickly. Lots of configuration that you don't want to deal with. So that's all I've got. Hopefully that kind of convinced you if you have been scared to figure out where to start with React. This is a great point. Now I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's going to show us a little bit about Next.js.